Hello boys, welcome back to another session of video tutorials, and this session is meant for class 12th biology students, and this is for 26th November 2020, and we are into the revision mode and we are revising chapter number 13, organisms and populations. And since previous batches there were only 4 chapters in this unit, and for your batch 2 chapters are deleted, that is chapter number 14 and 15 are deleted, so you are left with the chapter 13 and chapter 16, so you're all lucky. So only 2 chapters and maximum marks, and these chapters include what we see every day in and around us. Hence keep on observing what is going on in and around you, so that there may be case studies like CBSE has introduced in this exam for your batch assertion and reasoning questions. So most of the assertions and reasonings will come here, and then there will be a case study like a story will be given, a paragraph will be given, below that there will be question answers. So you need to focus on these 2 type of questions from chapter number 13 and chapter number 16. Anyhow, I will be training you. Once we complete the syllabus, we will be having a lot of discussions on assertion and reasoning questions, and through our WhatsApp group we will be discussing more of that. So keeping that in mind, I want you to focus on these 2 chapters. These 2 chapters are relatively very easy, but because they are easy, you are prone to neglect these chapters. So do not neglect this. Since they are easy, you must score out from these 2 chapters. So always we talk of our ecology. So ecology is the branch of biology that deals with interactions among organisms and between the organisms and its physical environment. So there are 3 factors. 1, organism to organism relationship, number 1. Second, organism with environment. So the relationship and the reactions between 2 types of this, that is organisms to organisms, organisms to environment in which they live, that is exactly what we call ecology. Study of ecology is important to strike a balance between development and maintenance of natural, environmental and biotic communities. Why should we study ecology? Once we study ecology, we will come to know the interactions. That is, interaction number 1, organism to organism. Number 1, first interaction. Second interaction, organism to abiotic factors. And third, organism to biotic factors. So there are 3 types of interactions. So this study of ecology will help us to know how to maintain a natural environment and what are the disturbing factors that spoil the ecology, and what are the possible remedial measures we need to take to restore the ecology. These are the things that we can understand when we study these interactions. And then it also helps us to use and conserve natural resources, solve local, regional and global environmental problems. So this is the need of the hour. As all of you know, a lot of pollutions, and every environment, be it a country or a state or a town or a village, even unfortunately, a lot of environmental problems are there, and these are threatening the existence of us. Hence, we need to understand the environmental problems and solve them with priority. Then only our ecology will be good and organisms and populations flourish in the given ecology. It is basically concerned with 4 levels of biological organization. That is, organisms, plants and animals, populations, communities and biomes. Biome is biggest ecosystem is a biome. So ecological hierarchy or ecological level of organization connected with ecological grouping of organisms. So we start off with individuals, organisms in a given environment or habitat. And if habitat is nice, everything is conducive, organisms undergo reproduction and produce populations. And populations interact with both biotic as well as abiotic factors in the given ecosystem and form communities. And communities having the interactions at larger level will form an ecosystem. And many ecosystems join together forms landscapes, and many landscapes join together to form a bigger ecosystem, that is biome. And many biomes join together make an universal biosphere. The biggest ecosystem in the universe is a biosphere. So you got everything starts with the smaller things and reaches to the bigger things. It starts off with the individual like amoeba, small organism, and go up to a biggest vast area called biosphere. Organism and its environment. Basically, these two we are going to study under ecology. The sum total of all biotic and abiotic factors. Biotic means living other organisms. Abiotic factors means the non-living factors such as heat, light, temperature, moisture, salinity, all these come under abiotic factor. Substances and conditions. What are all the substances that are present in the ecosystem, both biotic and abiotic? And what are the conditions prevailing in that ecosystem that surround and potentially influence organisms without becoming their constituent part is called environment. What is our environment? All these together will make our environment. At organism level, physiological ecology tries to understand how different organisms are adapted to their environment in terms of survival and reproduction. Now this is important. First thing, that organism should survive. Given the fact that environment may not be suitable, ecosystem may not be all that conducive for survival, the organisms have to undergo certain modifications, certain adaptations. And when they undergo certain adaptations, it may be a physiological adaptation or biochemical adaptation and anatomical adaptations. So overall, these adaptations make organisms to survive in the given environment. Like you must have seen, all the animals that are living in cold areas with a lot of ice, snow mountains, they have a lot of fur on their body. That's the morphological adaptation. What about physiology? They have the special enzymes which can withstand that cold temperature. So again, having the special enzymes in their blood is again the physiological adaptation. And of course, reproduction also. We know that there are organisms which reproduce throughout the year, there are organisms which are seasonal, and there are organisms which do not actually undergo sexual reproduction but undergo other types of reproduction. And some are having n number of capacity to produce the organisms, whereas some will have limited capacity. Some organisms will have the reproductive capacity only for certain age. So all these factors influence the organisms to adapt to the survival. And once they survive, they reproduce and increase the populations, form the populations. The variation in the intensity and the duration of temperature along the annual variations in precipitation results in formation of major biomes. So as I said, generally if someone asks what's a biome, we say the biggest ecosystem is a biome. So a desert is a biome, okay? A rainforest is a biome, and a tundra is a biome. These are all vast in area. So in the hierarchy of organization, this ecological hierarchy, you can see biome occupies almost the biggest area. Hence, biomes will make biosphere, which is part of the environment. Now you can see here the deserts and the grassland. You can also see tropical forests, temperate forests, and then the coniferous forests, then alpine tundra, all these are occupying a vast area. So hence we consider the biomes as the biggest ecosystems. So regional and local variations within each biome lead to formation of different kinds of habitats like tropical rainforest, deciduous forest, desert, sea coast, etc. The habitat includes both, as we said, biotic components like pathogens, parasites, predators, and competitors of the organism with which they interact constantly. So every day we live in a society where other species also exist. And we also, when we live in a society, in a habitat, in an ecosystem, we not only interact with the fellow organisms, but we need to interact with the abiotic factors, means non-living factors, non-living objects, like I said, temperature. So these cause lot of influence over them. So let's see what are the major abiotic factors in any given ecosystem. The first and foremost is the temperature, the most important ecological factor to determine the biomass of a place. In fact, when it is temperatures are soaring high, we have seen that all the greenery comes down, the green plants, grasses, everything becomes dry and die. So temperature is the crucial factor. And similarly, when it becomes too cold, temperatures have become narrow. That time also the survival of the plants, even animals, and to a certain extent even human beings will be having a question. So average temperature on land varies seasonally, as we are all experiencing. Summer, you got high temperatures, something like you must have all felt in North Karnataka, Bijapur, Gulbarga, Raichur, the temperature soars up to 45 degrees centigrade, and we all struggle, and we wanted always to come out of that season of April and May. And when temperatures again in the month of December, January, they come down to 8 degrees, 7 degrees centigrade, again we feel very, very uncomfortable. So depending upon the season, the temperatures will be varying, and they have that influence. And this decreases progressively from equator towards the poles and from plains to mountain tops. So temperature affects the kinetics of enzymes. We always talk of denaturization of enzymes. Enzymes get denatured because of the temperature. Already we have plotted the graph, if you recollect from your memory, the temperature versus enzymes graph. Whenever the temperatures are low, enzymes will not work, because at low temperatures enzymes will be denatured. Again, when temperatures soar up, enzymes again will not work because they get denatured. Enzymes work best as per that graph when the temperatures are optimum. At optimum temperature, enzymes work. What is the optimum temperature that we can consider is the body temperature of the organism. Okay, so the optimum temperature makes the enzymes to work efficiently, and the basal metabolism will go ahead. Metabolic rate will be up, and this will make the physiological functions of the organisms effective. Hence, temperature will be a major factor. The organisms that can tolerate a wide range of temperatures are called eurythermal. Now see the technical word eurythermal. Thermal, thermos means temperature. Eurythermal, which can tolerate. Example, cat, dog, tigers. You're all seeing in our day-to-day life, in your own home, cats and dogs, if you are domesticating it, you must have observed that they can tolerate wide range of temperatures. The organisms which have the ability to tolerate only narrow range of temperature are called stenothermal. Example, penguins, fishes, crocodiles, these have limited capacity. And what about us? Are we stenothermal or eurythermal? Just think of it. And the second abiotic factor is water. Life on earth is unsustainable without water. Think of our life. One day you are not getting water in your home. How do you feel on that day? Just think of it. So without water, our life will become miserable. So productivity and distribution of plants is heavily dependent on water. Without water, no greenery, no plants. We had that problem that if you have water, you have greenery. If you have greenery, you have water. So it's a double-edged sword. For aquatic organisms, the quality, that is chemical composition, pH of the water becomes important. Any slight change in the composition of the chemistry of the water will make the organisms die. Like fishes, you must have noticed, whenever pollutant chemicals are released into rivers like Ganga in Allahabad, Kanpur, all this, many aquatic organisms will die. Similarly, when pH goes up, naturally when the chemicals are loaded with the toxic substances enter into the water, the pH changes, and alteration in pH of the water makes the organisms to die. Hence, it's all the more important that water should be pure, not only for human beings, for aquatic organisms as well. Similarly, when we add salt concentration, salinity we say, if the salinity of the water gets disturbed, like for example in river we put 2 to 3 bags of salt, immediately we can see that all the fishes which are freshwater would die because salt concentration varied. And there are freshwater fishes and saltwater fishes, or seawater, marine fishes we say. So they will get adjusted only to that salt concentration. Otherwise, osmosis, what happens during, either it becomes exosmosis or endosmosis, that results in the death of the organisms. So the salt concentration is less than 5 in inland waters, 30 to 35, look at that, in the sea, and 100 in some hypersaline lagoons. So the organisms that can tolerate wide range of salinities are called euryhaline. Don't get confused, that is thermal. Temperature is eurythermal. Here it is euryhaline. Remember saline, salinity, salt, euryhaline. For example, salmon, that's a fish, and herring. The organisms which have the ability to tolerate only narrow range of salinities are called stenohaline. For example, goldfish and haddock, that is the marine water one. And the third abiotic factor is the light. Plants produce food through photosynthesis. Photo means light, in the name only it is there. Without light, no photosynthesis, and without photosynthesis, no starch, and without food, starch, no plant can survive. So, for photosynthesis to happen, to take place, and all the plants to survive on this earth, all the green plants must have a light. So, sunlight is a must. Some plants are adapted to low light conditions because they are overshadowed by tall canopied trees. Flowering in some plants occurs only in the presence of critical daylight called photoperiodism, light, and duration of light. The availability of light and land is closely linked to that of temperature, as the sun is the source of both. Ultraviolet component of sunlight is harmful to plants and animals as well, we know that. And the next abiotic factor, soil. Types of soil depends upon climate, weathering process, whether soil is transported or sedimentary, and how soil development occurred. The very soil formation will decide what are the components of those soil. So soil composition, grain size, aggregation determine the percolation capacity. You are all going to perform an experiment when you come back to lab for practicals. Soil percolation capacity of the soil, and of course water holding capacity of the soils, along with pH, mineral composition, and topography determine the vegetation in area. Already I have told you, all the children who are all sons of farmers, please bring soil sample from your field. We will test the percolation capacity of the soil as well as water holding capacity, and you can test the pH of your own soil, plus we will see the mineral composition. Then we will ascertain which micronutrient or macronutrient is deficient in your field, so that you can always tell your daddy to supplement that through organic farming, through natural ones. Okay, so when you come back to the school, please bring some soil so that we can help your daddy in this. So So we will talk about how the organisms respond to those abiotic factors in our next session. Until then,